You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Oops. Well, like I say, sometimes you get the bear and sometimes the second bear gets you. But anyway, you're listening to America's Web Radio, and we're going to do another, because, it was, what the hell? Wait a second.
Well, I have a guest.
Where did that come from? Gee, Merry Christmas. The sky is falling, folks. I guess, or something. I don't know. I hit my elbow and music starts. Oh, well. Okay, so anyway, we had fun last week and decided to do it again, and this is David's pick, but we also got our star, Mr. Victor Armendariz, with us.
Good at that.
I go home and I practice two things: rolling my tongue and playing my guitar. And rolling my tongue is doing a lot better than playing the guitar. I just can't seem to get my calluses back fast enough where it doesn't hurt so much. But anyway, guitar pickers know what I'm talking about. If you ever let it go for a while and you get soft fingers, well, then it takes a while to get them back. They don't just grow back like that. So anyway,
that is true.
Victor, welcome to the show as always, and
glad to be here.
We appreciate on late notice you coming in. But I tell you what, I know we're going to talk about yesterday's fiasco, and I was telling Dr. Howell from the Doctor's Lounge this morning, I said, as I was sitting there on my couch in my living room by myself, somebody took and put on my 60-inch big TV, somebody put a cash register in front of it. And all I kept seeing was ka-ching, 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 and it kept going until it hit $25 million. And I'm just sitting there thinking, that's my money. Just, and I put out a tweet. This was the stupid asking the stupid questions.
Boy, was it ever.
And it just, I got, and on my little tweet too, I put out that instead of all these damn hearings, why don't they try working and get something done for us?
You mean like concentrate on foreign affairs, concentrate on the country
immigration, medicine.
We have a issue at the border. We have, there are better things, even more that we could do with the tax system that's going to actually help the American people. And by doing that, you're going to help surrounding countries. But instead, Democrats want to focus on a fake, which is, if ever you had doubt that this was a fake crisis that they were after, or just a whole, this whole Russia collusion. If you had any doubt that this was fake, you need only watch Mueller yesterday. I mean, it's quite obvious.
I don't think he even knew where the boys' room was. He was sad, and somebody, I think it was Tucker Carlson last night or something, said I felt sorry for him. I had the same feeling during some of it. It's like, sending somebody to the lion's den. And
well, somebody asked me yesterday last night, somebody asked me if I felt sorry for Mueller. And my response is, on the whole, I do not feel sorry for Mueller, because this is a man supposedly of integrity, a man of utmost respect in the law enforcement community. He should have shut that down within the first 2 weeks to 4 weeks that when he was appointed special counsel, he got in and received the file, and he saw the FBI file. There was no there. And then they started the investigation, and he saw there was nothing there. He should have shut it down. So in that respect, I don't feel sorry for him. Where I do feel a little sorry for him is he was dragged in front of that committee, two committees yesterday, by the Democrat Party. They knowingly used him. anyone who thinks that the Democrat Party, that those people, Adam Schiff and Nadler and the rest of that gang, anyone who thinks that they didn't know the condition that Mueller is in right now, and let's face it, Mueller is not, and was not at the top of his game yesterday. And there's multiple reasons for that.
Yeah, but he's the head of his bank right now.
Yeah.
You know, the boy made some
he made
big
a lot.
bucks. And, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I'm sick of it. Mm-hmm. I'm sick of the government trying and doing a pretty damn good job of running my life and your life and everybody else's life. And then they waste the time and $25 million to accomplish absolutely nothing. Yeah. And you hit it on the head. 2 minutes after getting the file, he should have thrown it in the garbage and said,
he should have. What a lot of people don't realize is this whole, the Russian attempt. What it comes down to is Russia always attempts to create. They want to create in some ways a diversion, but they also want to create doubt in the American system. So they're always putting out different ads. They utilize social media every election we have because they're trying to get the American people to doubt the election system that we have here. Now, they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams with the help of the Democrat Party, because when the Democrat Party is after so much power, and the Democrat Party not accepting the results of a duly elected the duly elected president, the Democrats handed the Russians what they wanted. So you could go back to 2015 when the Russians started. So this was under the Obama administration. They knew back then that Russia was trying to do these ad buys on Facebook and social media, different things to seed or sow the seeds of doubt. And they did nothing about it. And then 2016 comes along, the election comes along, and the inevitable happens. No one believed Trump would win. He wins. And so they cannot accept the results. But in 2015, the FBI started the investigation into so-called Russia collusion. So they did hand a file over to Mueller. So in May of 2017, when Mueller was appointed, Mueller walks into the special counsel office. He's handed a file. That file shows anybody with an ounce of integrity or anyone with an ounce of knowledge of the law could have looked at that file and seen, okay, we have a big problem with the Steele dossier. This thing is non-verified. The Steele dossier that was used to launch this special counsel had clearly written on it, not fully verified. That's when Mueller should have said, spend a month or two and try to verify, but once you see that can't be verified, he should have shut it down. And David, I'm going to probably really mess up your day here. The estimated total so far, now that the special counsel has shut down, the estimated total has reached $40 million. $40 million. That's taxpayer money. How many sanctuary cities could have been built? How many border cages could have been built for $40 million?
My feeling is we should take it out of the DNC.
I agree.
They have, and make CNN pay for part of it, and make MSNBC pay for part of it. Which all of this is a wet dream. It'll never happen. But at the same token, we've got to get to the point that we say enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And I think the next time I hear that a legislature says there got to be a hearing,
oh goodness,
they should hear the bullet whizzing towards them.
The bullet of justice.
Yeah,
because we here at America's Radio are not recommending it. But no, you're right. I mean, every time
we spend more time. If they would spend half the time getting work done as compared to the time they spend on these stupid hearings that amount to nothing. If they want to try Omar for marrying her brother to get into the country, if they can figure out what her damn name is, then yeah. But it's just I haven't ever seen anything like this, and I keep worrying about the fact, and again, Dr. Hal and I were talking off mic before he left, that I keep worrying about, and I'm very thankful, though, that Trump is president, in that if something, we're not the only people watching, and our enemies are watching us, and we're in disarray, and, could we act really fast enough to retaliate if there is a need to retaliate? And what would we retaliate with? Thankfully, right now, our service is built up. If we'd been going through this with Obama, I'd have my own body vibrator in my bed, shaking myself to sleep at night, thinking about what could happen. It's very scary, and I look at the Democrats today, particularly after yesterday and even before yesterday, that talking about division, and division is weakness, and we're not the only ones looking at it. You don't think that idiot North Korea is not looking, or China's not getting advised about the condition we're in and politically, and certainly Russia knows, and somebody somewhere is going to try us one of these days. And the toughest we can be is a united front, and we're not a united front today.
No, we're not, and that is a great point, David. Someone else was asking me the other day, oh, well, I don't understand how you can like Trump, and they going into all of this personal attacks against a figurehead. And what I mean by that, and what I try to explain to them, is we are a country first. We should be a country first. We should be Americans first. We are a family. Every country in this world is considered a sovereign nation. And you go to Europe, and they sure as hell make themselves a sovereign nation. Next week, well, not next week, probably the week after, I'm going to do a show on, the Democrats always say we need to be more like Norway. It's social utopia. Well, I'm going to talk about Norway's immigration policy. And maybe this will wake some people up, but what I'm getting at, and what I was trying to tell this person is we're a country, we're a culture. It's an American culture. There's nothing wrong with that. There's a German culture, there's an Italian culture, there's an African culture, you go on and on. So the American culture we should never be ashamed of. And we're a family, and we should be a family and protect the country first. That does not mean that we can't disagree with a president. But what we have to understand is we have the office of the presidency and the history of this country, and that we as people, we as a country have lifted more people out of poverty than any nation, any country in the world. We have gone to the aid of more countries, more people in the world. No other country has done what we have done in 240 or so years. So there's something huge to be proud of.
I was going to bring up one thing because I'm old, but, do you like everybody you meet?
Oh, of course not.
All right.
And you know what? I prejudge.
I rest my case. But, going back to the 50s, I can remember my parents were Democrats, but they always voted Republican, which I didn't quite understand. But, they just, they didn't like a person. But they had all the respect in the world for the office. Mm-hmm. And that, you can't like, there's always going to be some people that like the president and some people that don't. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's the United States.
Right.
But you respect the office. Mm-hmm. You don't go through what we've been going through today. With that being said, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back with David's Pick with our special guest, bribed to come in. No, I'm just teasing. We're glad to have Victor with us. We had a fun show the last time you were here, and
it was a blast.
We'll be back right after this.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mike Karuchak. Have you ever wondered what doctors talk about amongst themselves? If you do, join us on the Doctor's Lounge and hear the doctors' conversations amongst themselves. Join me and my co-host, Dr. Hal Schertz, every Thursday morning, 8 to 9 a.m.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Okay, folks, you're back on America's Web Radio. No, we're back on America's Web Radio. I can't get this straight. You know, I've only been in this business for about 58 years. Would you believe that? And I only look 23.
Only 23.
Only 23.
Maybe 23 and a half.
Well, 23 plus federal and state taxes. You know,
yeah.
That brings the age up pretty quick. Anyway, we're talking about the fiasco from yesterday, and I don't want to, you know, we got other problems, and that was the thing that I kept. We spent, and you just said it was $40 million now.
It's up to about estimated $40 million.
You know, and there's so much that could be done and should be done, and you know, it's a shame that. I've never seen the hatred, the whatever it is that you know, I voted for Trump. I'll be glad to say I'm going to vote for him again. Mm-hmm. Do I like everything about him? I don't look any further than Melania personally, but beyond that, you know, it's hard to argue with his record, and quite frankly. And nobody really talks about this. As much hatred as the Democrats have for him personally, and, you know, go against everything he wants to do, and yet he has accomplished certainly more than the 8 years previously.
Yes.
And, you know, his accomplishments are incredible. And we don't, you know, when does he get all this stuff done?
You know, that is an amazing point in itself, David, because when you look, you can go beyond his immediate predecessor, President Obama. You can look at President Bush. You can look at President Clinton. In modern times, Donald Trump has gotten the most done in the least amount of time. And people hate it when I say that. They don't like, this is what I was talking about, David, when people they hate Trump so much that they can't recognize the actual good of the policies. You've got people now who are making more money. They're able to save more money. They're seeing their brothers, their fathers, their sisters get jobs. They're seeing people come back to the workforce that was out of the workforce for 8 years or 6 years or so, and they still can't get past their hatred for or their personal hatreds towards somebody who they don't even know. All they know is what they've been told. They're listening to a party, and that's the other thing that bothers me is we have a party in this country, the Democrats, who have just completely turned into a "we hate you" party, and this is coming from the party who tries to convince you that they're for the common man, they're for the working man, they're for the brown man, they're for the black man, they're for the yellow man. Well, all I hear, you know, David, when I have the audacity to tell people that I support Trump and I did vote for him and I will vote for him again, I get called traitor to my people. I get called I mean, you name it. I'm not even going to repeat some of the things that I've been called, and that's leftist, so-called compassionate Democrats calling me that. And when I tell some Republicans that, hey, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with the spending, or I don't agree, they don't call me names. They just say, oh, but Victor, we have to do this to get to this point. They're willing to have a conversation. And this is what I wish people would open their eyes up to when you're looking at today's Democratic Party, because it's not the Democrat Party that your parents would belong to. It's not the Democrat Party that Kennedy belonged to. And that's what people need to open their eyes up to. But when you talk about the successes of this president, who has been under fire, David, look at what he's been under fire from the entire Democrat Party, the entire lamestream media, and the Never Trumpers. Let's not forget that he has to battle his own party, or a section of his own party. But yet, we've got the best performing economy in 60 years or more. We've got the lowest Hispanic unemployment on record, the lowest black unemployment on record, more women in the workforce. Does that sound like a racist guy to you? Does that sound like an anti-woman guy to you?
And the stock market is blown away.
And the stock market.
You know, this is what maybe it's just because I'm not the brightest bulb in the box. I can't figure it out. As you were talking, I get these pictures in my mind of different things, and Trump has literally been accomplishing so much and walking through a minefield while he's doing it. And he's avoided being blown up every which way, you know. And it was like yesterday, the Democrats were counting on Mueller. He was going to wipe Trump out. Well, like I said, he couldn't find the boys' bathroom to do any wiping. But it's just amazing. And there's the old saying, and the Democrats are living up to it every day. And many of the so-called, they're not reporters, they're just opinionators. But many of the folks on television, don't confuse me with facts. My mind's made up. And my mind's made up that Trump's, and Brett and I were talking about this probably a month and a half ago, and there are some things that Trump does that annoy me. You know, some of his tweets do, but for the most part, it doesn't really upset my life one way or the other. And some of his gestures or some of his what he says sometimes bothers me, or the way he says it. But the bottom line is he's gotten it done, and he's got the facts behind him to prove it. And I'll be darned if I know how he's done it without walking through the minefield like he has. So the bottom line is, you had 8 years of somebody saying, well, it's the Republicans that are holding me up. I can't get anything done because of the Republicans. Poor me, And yet, Trump must have one hell of an organization that's working their butts off right now while you and I are talking and getting stuff done that has been signed into law, and it's just happened. And
well, that's the traits of a CEO. We've talked about before, David, that Donald Trump doesn't know how to kick the can down the road. When you're a CEO, you don't have the luxury of kicking the can down the road. You don't have the luxury of going to the Federal Reserve and saying, or hoping the Federal Reserve will adjust some rates so you can quantum easy your way into printing money. As a CEO in a private business, you can't do that. You can't take a gun and go to your fellow citizen's head and say, we're taking more of your paycheck. The government can do that. That is not the world Trump comes from, and this is another thing I try to explain. We've got a guy, and this is why he was elected. People have finally reached the point, I think the American people have finally reached the point where we're tired of the same old politician, because whether they have a D by their name or an R by the name, they're spending us into oblivion, they're taxing us into oblivion, and with the exceptions of probably the Freedom Caucus, who in the Republican Party, that Freedom Caucus which tries to rein in spending. But we finally have a president who did not come from the Washington ilk. He's not from the swamp. He's not a politician, and he proves it every day.
Okay. Can you imagine? Well, we see it in the wall, actually, but can you imagine owning the prime piece of property on down in downtown New York, and well, let's go have a committee meeting about it. Let's have a hearing about it. Let's have this about it. Let's have that about it. And 10 years later, they still hadn't built on it.
They still haven't built on it.
Trump says, I bought that piece of property, put a damn building on it, and tomorrow there's a building on it.
Tomorrow there's a building. That's true.
That's just like
But
you were
that's the
saying. That's the
mentality.
difference, and the rest of the folks in Congress, it's got to be blistering Pelosi's butt and some of the other Democrats that look at what Trump has done.
Yeah,
and
they can't handle it because they before Trump even accepted or before the inaugural address, when he was inaugurated, they were already spinning what a failure he was.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty astonishing when you look at what the Democrats did. And David, I seem to remember that in it was either the second or the third debate, Hillary made a big stink saying that Donald Trump wouldn't accept the results of an election. Well, folks, who hasn't accepted the results to this day?
She's buying stock in Procter & Gamble Kleenex.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
still crying in her beer.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to be Billy Boy living with that?
Oh, no.
Well, I don't think he does.
There's a reason why Billy Boy doesn't live with that.
But it's like some others were pointing out on Fox last night. That they haven't accepted it, and I don't know what there is to not accept. It is the way it is.
Yeah.
And if it was as it was, wait until 2020, and it's going to be another is what it is.
You're right there, David, because unless something changes and we continue the way we're going now, I do believe that not only is Trump going to win, he's going to win in bigger fashion, and I do believe he'll win the popular vote also, and that's going to really put a stick in the Democrats' plan. But I also think he will bring some Republicans with him, and I think they'll take the House back.
And again, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad, but you have to think ahead to a degree at some point. Obviously, Trump can't go for the third term, and you just look at what's out there right now, and he was such a shocker to the system. It was sort of like taking the old Coke that had carbonation in it and shaking it up and watch what happens when I lift my thumb from the bottle.
And throw a Tums in it.
Yeah, and so I don't want to be a naysayer or whatever, but I hope that somebody a lot smarter than me, and maybe it's Trump, that's grooming somebody to follow in his footsteps. I can't think of. Hopefully Bernie will have gotten so old he's
the way.
pushing a wheelchair, and Hillary will finally say, "I don't think I'm running," and. And Pocahontas is in her teepee.
Right.
And
making peace pipe smokes.
So I am concerned about. I had no doubt, quite frankly, after Trump won, that he would win a second term. He's done well, but it's the scary part after. We got to take a break. I was talking, I was taking a brief nap. You didn't notice that, but. Yeah, I need all the rest I can get at my age. We'll be back right after this.
Your auto love and investment demands the best, and for 45 years, Passport Transport has been meeting those demands. From manufacturers to the one-car collectors and all other facets of the auto industry and antique auto hobby. The first and the finest with unequaled service and peace of mind. Passport Transport, your auto transportation company. Contact PassportTransport.com with your need today. Passport Transport.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
Hi, my name is Steve Ronaldo, host of the Classic Car Show on America's Web Radio, talking to you about antique car insurance. In this hobby that I've been part of for years, not all insurance companies and insurance coverage is the same. I would suggest that you call J.C. Taylor or visit jctaylor.com to find out some information about some of the best antique car insurance you can get, such...
Okay, Mark, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, good. Okay,
insurance
thanks.
for your classic car. Again, when you get ready to insure your classic, antique, or even your street rod, call J.C. Taylor Insurance or visit jctaylor.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we do thank you for listening to America's Web Radio, and me pulling the shenanigans of David's pick one more time. I don't know how long this show's going to last. Good chance I could be fired for some of the comments I make. And,
Well, David, then you would have to fire yourself.
That's true. Well, that's might be a good idea, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've got Mark on.
Unless Brett gets a little fire happy and Brett throws us all out.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true.
He does run the computer streets.
We've got let's see, the where the cops take a shower whether they want to or not.
Can you get any worse than that?
No. I quite frankly, I get very upset when I see that, and
it happened again.
Yeah, and
it happened 3 times already, and I'm sure it's happened before, but no one else has had it on video other than those 3 that we saw.
Well, I tell you, they, as far as I'm concerned, the cops should have turned around and said, "You're arrested. We're going."
Yeah, but here's the issue: you have Comrade De Blasio that doesn't support his police.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and
he
when
should
you
go
get cops,
with them.
Here's what's going to happen: when you get cops who are distinctively demoralized by this imbecile, who he has about a better chance, AOC has a better chance of being president than he has. And she can't be president.
And she's not even running.
Yeah. And when you have that idiot telling the cops, stand down, don't do anything, back off, or you're going to be in trouble, this is what you get. Now, here's what's going to start to happen. And it's happened, I believe it was in the 70s, when the cops just decided, you know what, we can't do this. We'll just drive around. We're not going to get out of our cars. We're not going to police the area. And it took somebody like Giuliani to come back into the city after the destruction of Dinkins. And straighten the place out. And it's a circle. Unfortunately, this is going to become... Now, what happens if it turns around, and what happens if they don't throw water anymore? What happens if they start throwing bricks?
Yeah, well, wait a second. This isn't the way it happened on Blue Blood with Tom Selleck. He wasn't he the police commissioner on that show? I want him back.
The first thing, it's just not in New York City. That's the problem. This is going to be all over the place. I don't know if you heard about the mayor in Chicago, who should keep her mouth shut. But she said when the Fraternal Order Police chief of police came out, he said, "Oh, this clown again."
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is disrespect for the thin blue line that keeps us from being a bunch of animals. And separates the animals from society. And when this goes awry, when this disappears, that thin blue line, then society is crumbling. And I've heard this before, our society currently is crumbling. It's run by a bunch of left-wing maniacs who really have no sense of justice or reality.
Well, Mark, you hit it on the head, and I have said this over and over again. We just said it a minute ago, that you can't have people in office, in my opinion, that haven't walked the streets in the police officer's shoes or know what the hell they're talking about, or the same way with the military. How can you have some bozo voting something to do with the military that's never served? They have no clue.
You can't.
And, this is the same thing. It's like, how can some bozo vote on an economic plan when they've never worked?
Well, you listen to Nancy. Listen, this isn't a problem that began now. Remember you got to pass the bill to see what's in it from Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that didn't wake anyone up.
Yeah.
We were asleep. We were asleep at the wheel.
And that's very true. And David, to your point, I mean, you really have to step back and look and wonder how some of the people get elected. How do they get elected, and what's going on? And that brings me back to, you cannot allow the federal government to control education, because this is what you're going to get.
Well, it's not education anymore. It's indoctrination. I sent a conservative daughter, or relatively conservative. She still had some liberal views, to college, to a state college, and she has come back a flaming liberal, thinking that everyone should be able to come to this country and everyone should get everything for free, and why should we have to pay for anything?
Well, you need to ground her until she No, I'm kidding.
Right. Well, the problem is this, is that that's not going to work in the real world. But they're not considering facts and reality. It doesn't matter. Look at the news networks, the clown news network.
Oh.
Okay? Yeah. MSNBC. Oh, God, the conservatives must have been jumping up and down for joy because they actually had to admit yesterday that the Mueller hearing was a disaster.
Well, last night, if you flipped over to CNN or MSNBC or ABC, NBC, it looked like the night of the election in 2016. That's how depressed they look.
Here's what I'll tell you, and I think this was very well thought out from the beginning, okay, by Rod Rosenstein and Comey. And I'll tell you what my theory is now, and we'll see what comes out of the real report when it gets done. Inspector General Horowitz and Barr, okay, they're going to look at this from a different perspective. And I'll tell you what I suspect. I suspect that they took Mueller, who was a bumbling fool, older guy, great service record, phenomenal background, was really a great prosecutor, of man of integrity, and stuck him on a pole and said, just stay there, don't worry about what's going on, we're going to pay you, just shut up, take the ride, you're going to get a great paycheck, and don't worry about it, okay?
And
we'll take care of everything.
And put your name at the top of the
We'll take care
paper.
of everything. Weissman.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that. He didn't write his May 29th speech either, but he wouldn't get into that. That's beyond his purview.
Beyond my purview.
And can someone explain to me what I take your question means?
Oh, I heard that. That's David and I were talking off the air. How many times did he say, I take that question, I'm not going to answer that? And when was Mark, you're a lawyer. Have you ever had a witness look at you and say, I'm not going to answer that, or I'm not going to take that?
Here's the question. Rather than, the negotiations before this came in, and I suspect that he also sat down, or his team sat down with the Democrats, because don't think for a second
without a doubt
that they didn't do that ahead of time. And I tell you honestly, Mueller did not want to be there. You could see his body positioning, you could see his facial expressions. He did not want to be there. He looked like an old, tired, bumbling guy who had served his country very well for years, had been a Marine. And you notice after this testimony, they kept going back to that. Thank you for your service as a Marine, to bolster him again. Mm-hmm. Listen, you can only prop up a dead guy so many times before he eventually falls over. Yesterday, he fell over.
Well, just watch the movie Weekend at Bernie's, and you'll see what Mark's talking about.
Well, this was their attempt at resurrecting the Mueller report for live video for their 2020 campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what they got? Yeah. They got the Republican video.
Oh, my goodness. Mark, that's so true, because I said last night when this was over that if the RNC doesn't have production going on already with commercials, then they should be fired.
Here's maybe you can explain to me. Here's the most baffling thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I watched these hearings last night, and because I was in court during the day, and this guy Mueller, he obviously had no concept of what his report was about. At least sit down and somebody prepare a summary for him. Prepare a couple of headlines, something. He doesn't know who Fusion GPS is, the main character in the whole debacle, the inception point.
Oh yeah.
How could you have that possibly occur?
And they were giving him page numbers, and he couldn't find
he
page
couldn't
one.
find page numbers.
He
David
looked so clueless.
Mark and David brings up a great point. How many times, and this is where I do feel a little sorry for Mueller, because clearly he's beyond where he was 5-10 years ago. But David, he absolutely was struggling with finding page numbers, finding where they were.
Yeah, but I think some of that was a little bit of an act to waste some time.
To waste time. I agree with that too. And when he kept getting them to restate the question, that's a time-wasting technique.
Yeah, that's
so that
almost,
was clearly.
It was almost too obvious.
Yeah, it really was. But
and the bottom line is that here's what I think we're missing. I mean, let's real quick. We'll touch on what does a prosecutor do. Okay, special counsel is a prosecutor. What does he do? He either charges. First of all, the inception of this was, let's go find a crime. We'll investigate to find a crime. You don't investigate to find a crime. You have a crime and then you investigate. Okay, so we did this ass backwards to begin with.
Oh, absolutely.
But now you get to the point where, okay, we're looking at this now. Okay, so what do? As a prosecutor, you either have the facts, and he ran multiple grand juries. Oh, my goodness. Holy moly. All the stuff we didn't see because it's outside the purview of the report. But you have to look. He either charges or doesn't charge. If he doesn't charge, that's it. There is no power ever of a prosecutor to exonerate a person. You're either guilty or not. There's either a charge or there's not. And I'll tell you real quick what that stems from is there was a case in 1895 by the Supreme Court called Coffin versus United States. And that was an appellate case before the United States Supreme Court, which basically came to the effect that there is a presumption of innocence, okay? It dealt with a former bank president colluding to get together for bank fraud. All right, the facts of the case are unimportant, but what the court said is there is the presumption of innocence always in favor of the accused, and that was the bedrock, an elementary and axiomatic bedrock of the American justice system. We are not, Saudi Arabia, okay? According to the Democrats, we might be.
Yeah,
but
well, they want
we're
us to
not
be.
Saudi Arabia. We're not some of these little third world countries where you got to prove your innocence. And how do you prove something that never happened?
You can't prove a negative, Mark.
No.
Have you ever tried to do that in court?
Yeah.
So
every once in a while you do, and the judge looks at you like, sure, give that a...
With that being said, we're going to have to take our final break right quick, Mark. So hang in there. We'll be back right after this.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a road in
Sorry about that.
future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Kuruchak. Join me and my co-host, Dr. Hauscherz, as we talk about the topics that doctors talk about amongst themselves, such as Medicare, Obamacare, alternative forms of care, and health information technology. Join us every Thursday morning, 8 to 9 a.m.
This is David Donaldson with the Atlanta Healing Center, conveniently located in Lawrenceville, Georgia. At AHC, your success is our goal. Addiction recovery is about more than just not using. It's about becoming a whole person and addressing all aspects of your physical, psychological, and social needs. Please call us at 770-696-9862, or you can reach us on the web at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
And we're back on America's Web Radio. David's pick. This is, I feel so hypocritical doing this show. One of the reasons when I started the station was that I made the decision that I wasn't going to do shows myself. Yeah, that, people would think, well, he couldn't get a job anyplace else, so he did it himself. But, I just, I decided I wanted to, and I can say things that some folks can't say that because I don't care. And, what am I going to do?
Maybe you do care too much.
I might care too much.
Well,
David,
tell me if this is true, David. I've been told that once you reach a certain age, you can just pretty much say, that's it, the veil's off. I don't give a rat's, what people think of what I say, and I'm going to say it.
Well, right quick, and you all didn't hear this, but you get to that age and you got to, a lot of other things break, like, quadruple bypass and all that. And then not the last straw, I hope, but one of the straws, your give-a-shitter breaks. And so you just don't really care. No, I don't care. And
rolling that into this is, if you go back to the whole FISA area of this whole Mueller report, can I ask one question as a practicing attorney for over 32 years? If I ever lied to a judge and was found out to be lying to the judge, I'm pretty sure that I would get a phone call from the clerk that the judge is ordering you to appear before him today to explain what happened. Or if I refused to pick up his phone call, guess what he'd do? He'd send after me the marshals. He would send the cops and say, I want him brought before me. He would issue a bench warrant for me, and they would execute on that bench warrant. Can I ask where the Obama-appointed FISA judges are? Mark Levin said something. He said, this either has to be fixed or it has to be abolished.
Well, I think we need to know, and hopefully Attorney General Barr and Horowitz and anyone else involved in the investigation, the Attorney General from Connecticut, hopefully we will get to the bottom, because we need to know, were these FISA judges complicit, or were they just lied to? But if they were
lied to and they've now found out about it, why haven't they called Comey and Rosenstein and the rest of them back before them to answer?
Oh, right. You missed the name Hillary?
And Hillary.
But she didn't sign off on the non-verified part.
Right, non-verified, yeah. But she did. This is another thing that needs to be driven home, and David, I'm glad you mentioned it. This whole fake trying to tie Trump into Russia collusion, what people need to understand, the collusion from Russia was during the Obama administration and with the Hillary campaign, as David mentioned. Hillary paid for this dossier, this dirty dossier. Hillary paid Russian operatives. These are Russian operatives who were feeding false information. Now, she wasn't smart enough to figure that out, but she willingly paid for it, willingly accepted this information from Steele, and willingly went through GPS and in effect laundering information as to try not so the trail didn't lead to her. This is where we need to be focusing the investigation, not trying to throw a duly elected president out of office.
The big ticket item that I think, when you draw all this together, this was actually an attempt by the deep state, I use that term, I know it's a bad word, but to take over our federal government, the government that we legitimately elected, and to overthrow that government. That's what this was, and I don't know if anyone realizes how serious this is. We're all fighting back and forth, Democrats, Republicans. We need to look at the fact that there was a group of people in our government who decided to disavow what the American people did and put in what they wanted, and to change an election.
Well, this just what you were saying. You take a look at Puerto Rico, you take a look at Venezuela, and you take a look at any other situation, and just exactly what you were saying, Mark, is what you have when people have done laws, and then all of a sudden you have a revolution.
And this is what's going on here, is the Democrats are involved in a revolution.
Yep, they certainly
are. And the conservatives are going, are we in a fight? We better wake up.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats and the far left wing of this loony wing, and interestingly enough, you know what? We haven't heard from the Odd Squad in the last day.
The Socialist Quartet?
Yeah, what happened?
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure they will spool up soon, because they're going to keep pushing. They're going to keep pushing impeachment, and Pelosi right now is actually thanking the Democrats, because Mueller squashed impeachment yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you honestly, and my prediction is that they're going to continue to go forward.
Oh, I think so.
And they're going to lose the 2020 election because of their absolute... This is why the Roman Empire fell. This is why the Ottoman Empire fell. Because they didn't care what the people said anymore.
Well, Cortez is still trying to look up the word purview.
Well, she should look up the word Amazon and find out that 25,000 jobs ain't coming to New York.
You know, I think you guys are right. I think, David, I think she probably is trying to look up the word purview. Let's see, what else did he use yesterday? There's probably a few things.
Would you repeat that question? Oh, was that a question?
No, she's looking up, I take that question.
Yeah, now that she probably is looking up.
And you want to pivot to Omar, or we're beyond that yet?
It says, where do you kiss your brother?
Oh, man. This is one of those things that is going to go under the radar because we are going to be labeled xenophobes, homophobes, and what else is racial profiling. But I don't know, after seeing that little clip that came out, that we should be afraid of all white men.
Okay, now hold it right there, Mark. David, did you hear about this morning?
No.
So, your favorite Congresswoman, Omar. No, I'm kidding there.
Tell him.
So, yes. So, not all the views said well, I was going to say, not all the views spoken here are necessarily the view. No. So, David, there's a tape that came out this morning, that an interview that Representative Omar had on Al Jazeera TV, and she and I am not making this up, David. Omar looked in the camera and said that the biggest threat right now are white people, because the white people are a bigger threat because they're violent, and we need to be careful of the radicalization of white people.
Well, you know, she's right. We the ones that we done bought the guns. we done ready. So, you know, just ask Brother Roger, you know.
Well, if she's going to accuse white people of being radicalized for enjoying the Second Amendment, well, she's going to have to throw this brown guy in. She's going to have to throw Jewish Mark in. She's going to, you know.
I mean, I love the fact that we should have undocumented weapons or illegal weapons as undocumented weapons in sanctuary homes.
Yeah.
You know,
and I bet they are.
Yeah, I might have a few undocumented myself, Mark. I'm not going to, you know.
You know, this what scares me, and you were talking about it. You and Brett were talking about it a minute ago. Is, you know, you can handle somebody like Pocahontas. You can handle somebody like Cortez. You can handle somebody
Talib,
Omar, whatever. The scary thing about all of this, you can't handle the people that voted for him.
Voted for him.
You know, how do you vote for a douchebag, you know? But obviously a lot of the New Yorkers did, and
listen, we have the brain power of a fly. A pencil eraser in the Bronx could get elected.
When you said fly, I was thinking of something that is more like air passing quickly.
Well, you know, that is the scary part, David, is we have now, and this goes back to what Mark was saying about indoctrination, we have so many people coming out of the so-called college system and the government school, public school system that are indoctrinated, and they're voting for people like Cortez. And look, ladies and gentlemen, you could probably sit with Cortez and have a great time over a couple of drinks. You could probably sit with any of these representatives. But just because they may be nice and have a good, fun drink and party with does not mean that they need to make decisions on this country. And the fact that we have people voting for someone, let's take Cortez, for instance. Cortez has absolutely zero knowledge of how an economy should work. And yet she's in there trying to tell people how an economy should work, and she's trying to tell us that Venezuela has apparently
I need to ask Mark. I need to ask you a serious question because you were up there with them all. How long does a pimp stay in business when he gives it away free?
It depends on whether you're a Democrat or Republican.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Because a Democrat pimp may be subsidized.
You know, and not only that, but he won't be in reality, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly, that's true.
Well, with that being said, now we got another minute to go. 1 minute to go, and the show blows.
I just say we better wake up as America to get back on track, because the Democrats are going to take this train down to a wall, and we're going to hit it hard.
And they're going to throw grandmother over the edge with the
wheelchair with the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know what, we do need to wake up, because if you're sitting out there thinking that America can't fall, you better think again, because it can fall from within, which is what the Democrat Party's trying to do.
And they're doing a damn good job of it. It's, you heard it, crumbling from within.
From within.
It's, you know, I guess one of the reasons I voted for Trump to begin with was he nailed it as far as draining the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate that he has to try to drain the swamp with the plumbers. And
that's a good point.
They want
to. You may hate the man, but you got to love what he's doing.
You got absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Well, with that being said, Mark, how's the weather up in New York?
Not too bad today. It actually stopped raining for once.
Hey, all right.
Well, Blasio will change that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Give Blasio some time. Let's.
Thank goodness the cops may dry out under his administration in a couple of weeks.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, here we go. So thanks for listening. Mark, thanks for joining us. And
everybody have a great week. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.
We're going to try. We're not coming to New York.
And support our police, God darn it.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Amen. You're listening to America's Web Radio, and this has been another one of the improvised David's Pick, but we have our good friend and host of On Point. I can't.
This was a good one.
I always think of a dog, you know, when you On Point, you know, and the picture of that dog and that tail just.
I've been called worse.
I didn't say. I don't know.
By nicer people.
I just, you know. Well, there are a lot nicer people than me, but gotta admit. No, anyway, we do thank you for listening and tuning in to America's Web Radio, and we do have to have a little fun here every now and then. Can't be serious all the time. And you think of the mob squad or whatever they are. You know, I think maybe one of them has her hair curled too tight and might be interrupting the blood flow.
You know what? That might be a good assumption there.
Yeah, I don't know. Might cut them off and see if she makes sense. But anyway, with that being said, we got to get out of here. We got to put the plug in the jug and move on down the street. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction.